Hi, hello, good evening. It is the 22nd of December 2025, and I'm going to be frank, I'm not happy with the way the paint has gone on this door, so I'm probably going to remove it. I might try another coat. Yes, originally the door would have been wooden, that colour, and the reason why it's got this over the top, this sheet of plywood, which I have painted white. I was going to put a mandala on it, but as I'm moving out, that ain't happening. It's because when I first moved into the property 9 years ago, this door actually has got glass panels that were broken, and I know why they were broken. And basically, my landlord refused to fix it. So for the first several years, I didn't have a door to close to the kitchen. One, because my children were really little, so we had a stair gate that went like from here to here. And I got to the point where I was literally keeping the doors that I took off. So there was 3 doors in total I had to take off. The bedroom door, the door to the staircase, and the door to the kitchen, because I was using stair gates. And unfortunately, because of the style of the house, the stair gates wouldn't fit. And the other reason is because the doors had glass panelling. Not the door to the bedroom, that I had to remove because it was completely shot to shit due to the previous tenants having a really bad domestic violence outburst where there was actually stab marks in my child's bedroom door and also in the bathroom door. This door had broken glass panels, which both the estate agent and the landlord were happy to rent this house out with. I did query it on more than one occasion, and I did say, look, I'm being funny, I've got kids. I can't really be renting a property with broken glass panelling in. Especially as they get older, it's the panels that are around this sort of area. And I was always worried, that someone was going to cut themselves, or if the door got closed too harshly, that they might fall out. And it was just easier, basically, I wouldn't say it was cheaper, but it was just easier to board it up and keep the door as it is, put it back on, and it is brilliant. One, as if there was a fire, they always say it's best to close the doors in any property that you own, if you have them. Because heaven forbid, if there is a fire, it helps to contain where the fire outbreak is and to prevent it from spreading. So as much as I love open plan, there is a necessity for doors, but again, there's pros and cons to having them. But because the house has been and is so poorly insulated, by putting this door back on and being able to close off to the kitchen, which again, as I keep saying, is an extension on the property, which at the moment and for many years has not been structurally safe. Plus the kitchen, I didn't even have a kitchen for 6 months in 2025. And from 2016, I've literally had a kitchen that wasn't even fit for purpose. Not to mention, it is the coldest room in the house, that and obviously the bathroom. I have just found it this year, and since I put it back on, I think I put it back on in like 2024, it has really helped to insulate the rest of the house. It is a shame because this radiator in the kitchen is actually the hottest radiator because of how the central heating runs through the property. So I really think I'm going to take this paint off here, and if I do, I will do a video to show you how to do that. Yes, I could sand it back, but that's too time consuming, so I'm not going to do that one. This wall is going to need another coat of paint, especially at the top. Apart from that, I'm quite happy. This wall, again, you can see the differentiation in colour. None of the walls have ever matched in colour since the day I moved in. So that wall, again, I need to finish off. And that leads to here. Now, originally, everyone always asks me, what is this switch to? And I really don't know. Okay, I don't even know whether this switch is still live. I believe it may have been originally to the boiler, which is now in the kitchen. Because where I'm standing now would have been the kitchen. So when I do clear the house, I will literally be working on the dimensions to kind of give a rough idea as to how small this property really was, and without the extension, how small it would have been. And again, there is that little square down there where the skirting board has not been painted, and that again purely is because when I moved in, it hadn't been painted in the first place. That, again, more exposed pipe work. This wire here, I believe, is the aerial to the television. Again, it doesn't work. It's never worked since I've moved in. And because I don't even use terrestrial TV in the property, it's not been any, it's like, whatever. So it is what it is, and it will stay as it is, and I'm not even going to touch it. But again, you can clearly see how poorly fitted the skirting board is in this house. And the other problem with this wall is it is the external wall to the property, which leads to the shared access between 4 properties. And whenever I used to hoover the floor in this room, right under the radiator, sorry, you can probably see some more of my stuff floating around. Every time I hoovered under here, the amount of silverfish that would just literally come out from underneath the radiator just proved as to how damp this house is and how cold this house gets. This wall, which has got the plug socket on and the door, originally this was the outside wall to the house. And then behind it is the extension. So this wall itself, again, has been subjected to subsidence. The reason I know this is because this area has been a real son of a bitch to use for anything, whether it was for my sofa, for my table, for my children to sit at, bookshelves, CD cases, everything I had. Whenever I tried to use this wall, bearing in mind this is the main outside external wall to the property before the extension, nothing is level. You try and level it up, that's my fire extinguisher, with the skirting board in this room, and it is at least 2 to 4 inches out. Nothing will lay flat against this wall, especially in this corner over here. Now, I'm going to, at some point, get a spirit level, just more out of morbid curiosity, to see how bad this wall is. So, again, it's very clear that there is a lot of subsidence in this property. And I've explained this to the landlord on so many occasions over the last 9 years, and they just don't give a shit, basically. I mean, you can clearly see that there are cracks here. And if I go outside and show you the external wall again, which I have videoed and photographed over the last 9 years, you will clearly see how bad the subsidence is. So this area of the house, like I said, for 9 years has been an absolute son of a bitch to use for anything, because it just will not sit flush in that corner. So whether this house is re-rented or sold, which is what I keep being told is going to happen, somebody is going to need a really, really good survey done on this property, and they're going to need an architect to sort out this shit, not to mention a really good builder who's not going to want to screw you over, because in my honest opinion, the extension in the kitchen needs completely taking down and rebuilding, but only after you have sorted out the subsidence and the constant leaks that are happening in this corner of the property. All right, you can clearly see it in the bathroom, and you can clearly see it in the living room, or what would have been the kitchen. And again, a lot of this structural damage internally and externally has happened due to subsidence, due to issues with the foundations, and the guttering and roof leaking, and the landlord not wanting to do anything to maintain it. So here's where we are. So like I said, for 9 years, I have tried to support my landlord. I have tried to constantly tell them the issues with the property, and they just don't care. And there's nothing more I can do because I'm leaving. And like I said, I don't know where that plug socket is for, that plug there. That plug socket never worked. And the radiator does. But despite constantly having it on, it was always a breeding ground for silverfish. In the kitchen, silverfish, woodlouse, and slugs. Not snails. I found that really weird. We never got snails in the kitchen, but slugs, woodlouse, wasps, spiders, and silverfish. Bathroom, silverfish. And it's all this side of the property. So I will dust away the cobwebs, and I will paint this side of the house.